All right. Welcome into another edition of the Rice Football Blue and Gray Preview Show. I'm Matthew Bartlett here, director and managing editor at the Roost. JP Heath waving, making those owl hands fly in excitement. It's a victory Wednesday. It is Wednesday, right? I've lost all track of time.
I'm with you. Yesterday, I asked my wife a couple times, is it Tuesday? I can't remember. And to throw on top of that, not that anyone watching or eventually will watch this will care, but I am making an out-of-town trip. I'm going to a baseball game with my dad tomorrow. So today is my Thursday, but I think it's a Tuesday, but it's really Wednesday. So anyway, you don't want to know what's going on in my head most of the time.
Well, that's why we're here not to talk too much about what's going on in our heads, but to talk a little bit about the game at hand, the week ahead. It's a fun time to be a fan of Rice football. Rice is 2-1, and then we were talking before the show, I got my notes together. Being prepared for this, that helps, right?
Get it together, man.
Right, 2-1 for the first time since 2015. And setting the deck for the conversation we're about to have. If Rice can win this weekend against the University of Houston, they will be 2-1 for the first time since 2001. That is a 21-year-old streak that can be broken. Speaking of snapping streaks, do we have? I'll allow you to venture past. I'll plug it. We talked about it on the Roost podcast that came out yesterday. If you want to delve deep into the Louisiana game and just kind of, when you get a good win, you just kind of want to relive it. If you want to go relive it, go listen to that podcast wherever you get your podcast. But I will allow you, JP, to cheat and take one snippet, one look backwards, anything that stood out. What'd you like? What made you smile? Just one tidbit you got from the win over UL. I guess UL, not ULL, right? Whoever they are.
We can call them ULA now. They're always ULA to us. It's not a game week. They're not watching. No, Louisiana win. Again, dripping with sarcasm there. Get over yourself if you don't get sarcasm. But a lot came out of that. One, which I can't remember if I posed to you. I apologize for forgetting this potential conversation. But I thought it was potentially Bloomgren's biggest win at Rice. And Nate and I got into a lovely family squabble on air talking about that at the end of the broadcast and filling time at the end of a Rice home win. 3 straight dubs at home. Thank you very much. One of my phrases. I thought it ranked up there. You have to consider UAB. You have to consider Marshall, obviously, for the high ranking of it. But again, I'm going to stick with it being the highest because what we said in this very form a week ago to the very minute almost, this was going to be the right game at the right time. And they performed so well in all 3 phases that I think it was the biggest win of the Mike Bloomgren era. If young brother Bartlett, if they can take care of business the rest of the way. I'm not saying they have to rattle off 9 more consecutive wins, but the rest of the season will determine how big of a win. You can't sell short that you ended the longest winning streak in the nation. That was longer than a minute, and I apologize. On to the Cougs. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting because as we set the table for the Cougs discussion, I think this game can set the table because Louisiana, obviously, nation's longest winning streak, a program that I look back, Rice held them to 175 yards of total offense. They haven't had fewer than 200 since 2011. Yeah. So this is the best defensive performance against a good football team, a team that has gone to 10 bowl games in 12 years and has 4 10-win seasons in the past 6 or something. Like, really good team. They went out and took care of business. So that's a big win, but it kind of sets the table because now that you've done it, now that you're 2-1, now that 3-1 is on the table for discussion, it sets up what could be one of the bigger games in Bloomgren's tenure because I feel like, going into the year, The Cougars have won, I believe, 6 straight by U buckets. They were a dark horse team. They were a team that was expected to contend, maybe win the American. And if you win the American, you're in the conversation for a dark horse college football playoff spot, whether or not that's likely or not. But this is the quality of team. They've stumbled, but if Rice can pull this one off, you might just have one-upped your best win in program in the past 5 years in back-to-back weeks, because not only is it a victory over a very good football team across town in the Houston Cougars, but it's a rivalry win, and you go to 3-1, and Houston falls to 1-3.
Yeah, so much deliciousness surrounding it. And I hadn't thought about it from that angle. And being the critical thinker that I try to be, I salute you, sir, for that. Because, yeah, this win would be bigger than the Louisiana win. I'll go out and say it. And then, but that win at that time was the biggest win. And then you just go on. And then we'll worry about UAB and then down the line, FAU when you have to, because yeah, I totally agree. Not that I don't say this often, but I totally agree with everything you said. We're in harmony here. I agree.
I mean, you're allowed to not agree with me, but doesn't hurt.
And I'll say it. We'll have friendly discussions, but yeah, I totally agree because of the state where U of H is going and Rice wants to be in like the Big 12, or like when Rice is still going to the American, which is obviously a big deal, but also snapping a 6-game losing streak in the rivalry and just getting that trophy back to where it belongs. And like I saw somebody sent me one of the headlines. I don't know where it landed with apologies to the Chronicle, but they say, like, we know because we sat in the presser yesterday, and we'll still talk about it. Rice thinks they can win this game. Should that be a headline? Like, should that be a huge headline? Like, every teams at certain levels should believe they should win every game. And I think Rice is to that point. But as we might get to in a second, I meant to cut up the sound with Ikenna Ihechuku and Luke McCaffrey going at it. And it had that rivalry type of feel press conference that, well, yeah, duh, newspaper editor who have to have headlines to drum up some type of readership. But yeah, Rice definitely thinks they can win this game.
I got a pull quote for you, and then I promise we're going to get on to Houston, because I wrote this down. I grabbed a couple notes from the presser. They're up on the site. I have some quotes from Luke McCaffrey and Ikenna about how much this game means, and they were spitting fire. Here's Ikenna. He said, quote, "It seems like we're almost in their shadow, and it's time for us to prove that we are the best football team in the city of Houston."
Yeah.
Not mincing words.
I took notice, and I put like double asterisk by my the way I do my notes to set up my audio for the upcoming game and production. I'm using that one. Yeah, that's going to get played. But as you were, go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's a good one. So Houston, let's start with the Cougars offense, because I feel maybe that's the part that is most the known quantity in this equation. If for one reason it feels like their starting quarterback, Clayton Tune, is entering his 74th season of college football. I know it's not that, but between his couple of redshirt years, one season's COVID years, he's been around for a while and enters this game 63% completions, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, has thrown for 744 yards across 3 games, about 250 a clip, which is respectable, but he's kind of the engine that will make this offense go. He's also second on the team in rushing, and that is with accounting for sacks as well. So can move the ball on the ground, a dual threat guy. Bloom said in his presser yesterday that, essentially the second best quarterback they'll see this year, probably to Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. No offense meant to Mr. Tune, but you have now seen Tune with me at least a couple times at this point. Kind of what's your read on him, and how much of a challenge do you think he will end up posing to a defense that's playing really, really good right now?
Immense. Could I answer it quickly? He's going to be a problem, as the kids would say. He can book it. He's a sub 11 guy in the 100, or maybe the hurdles might floor you, but I don't know all my track terms and my times. But he can book it. And again, this is not a Cougars themed. It's a Cougars edition, but we don't pretend to answer for the Cougars. I politically say that, but I don't know how they plan to use him. But he's their running threat. They've got Henry, who is a tremendous back, but losing McCaskill, I think, just by watching the games I've watched of them this season, especially last week, he can really run it. But do you want him being, from a Cougars perspective again, the main rushing threat? That could pose a problem, but he gives a huge problem for the defense because he forces you to go 11 on 11. But to also answer what I would have said before getting so giddy, he in Gush, he is so good at, I mean, he can spin it. Like he threw for what, 272 against Rice last season and made it look pretty easy. And before that, he really had been in kind of a rut. And I think he can go. I think, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, not that the rest of the season matters, but Owls will not see a better quarterback the rest of the season. I think I'm safe in saying that. But yeah, the way he can run it and throw it, we hear dual threat all the time, and that's kind of well, he's a running quarterback that can throw. Well, this is a throwing quarterback that can also book it and run. But Rice, again, 2-game sample size plus, maybe last year the La Tech game, Rice has one of those guys too, just not the whole big sample size that Clayton Tune has put up for that team across town.
Right. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned McCaskill. We saw him a little bit last year in this game, and he was just such an electric playmaker. They got him a ball in the flat, and he took off, and I think he broke like a screen for like a 30-yard touchdown. I think that might have been the first or the second touchdown of the game last year. I'm thinking it was early. It was enough where okay, Rice is hanging, and then he just took it, and you're like, man.
Yeah.
So him not being there is huge. Tizon Henry is going to get some run. He's kind of been the guy, and Clayton Tune on the ground as well. But this is a team that, the spread offense has kind of evolved. And I feel like we talk about this every week now. What version of the spread are we going to see? This is one that, especially without McCaskill, they will run and use Tune to try and keep Rice honest. But this is going to be a game where I think UH is going to attack through the air primarily. I don't think that's breaking news or anything crazy. What's going to be interesting to watch, I think, and if I'm kind of circling it, it's going to be Tank Dell. He is the go-to guy for this offense. He's been their leading receiver. He's already up to 18 grabs, 246 yards, and 2 touchdowns so far this season. And I've kind of been keeping notes because it started last year for Rice against Arkansas when they went up against Traylon Burks. And I was kind of like, okay, what can Rice do against an elite wide receiver? And they shut Traylon Burks down. I think he had 40 receptions, like 40 yards on
that would be
catches.
A good game, Matthew. Yeah,
that would be good. And then I watched him against Jordan Addison. Against USC, he had 5 grabs for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just for curious, I didn't prep you on this. You know what his line was the following week against Stanford?
I did. I heard it in a blip on one of the preview shows. It was really good, right?
Yeah, 175 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And so Rice has been, and Jordan Dunbar and Sean Fresh they've played almost all the snaps. They're mixing in Lamont Narcisse a little bit on defense, but it's been those 2 guys. And so what I want to see in this game is, how does Rice handle Tank Dell? He can line up a couple different places. He can do a lot of different things. He can stretch the field. He's strong, can push through some guys. So it's going to be a good matchup. But if you can contain Tank Dell, that's half of the UH offense.
Yeah.
Period. And he has been the kind of one that, if you've gone back and you've watched some of their earlier games, He had a big play against UTSA that kind of woke them up and was able to rally them and get them to overtime. He's a guy that they're going to lean on. If you take that away or limit that, that's what I think is particularly interesting, because Houston is going to score. I think they're averaging somewhere in the 30 points per game bucket. But actually, and here's a fun fact, I might have to see the last time this has happened. I just went up and looked up the national leaders in total offense right now. University of Houston is number 87 in the country in total offense. That's 382 yards per game, which is pretty good. That's middle of the pack. You know who is 9 spots ahead of them, if I can do math correctly? No, I can't. 12 spots ahead of them. That's the Rice Owls.
Dang it, you took my guess. Yeah,
I stole your thunder. But I think that's interesting, because in this game, at least the past couple years, we've kind of pieced it together that, Rice will have the defensive advantage and U of H will have the high-flying offense, and that's the two strengths. Spoiler alert, Rice might have a pretty good offense, and that's accounting for the debacle against USC.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts flown around my head, if not for that USC game, because another underlying theme on the first 2 broadcasts, 2 or 3 broadcasts, has been, man, those pick sixes sucked against USC. And
hey, Rice has thrown 4 pick sixes now, and they are 2-1.
How does that even happen? Like, how is that even possible? But yeah, if not for the 14 points against USC, and maybe when we get a few more game sample size, we can see like 6-7 games against like level competition, and maybe even take out, to be fair, maybe take out the McNeese game too, if you just had conference stats or just group of 5 stats. And to tie up another point, I looked up the box. McCaskill did have, I knew it was one of the first quarter touchdowns, but he had the first touchdown last season, the 35-yarder. I knew he had 3 total, but then he had the 2 short ones, one in the middle of the third quarter and one towards the end of the third quarter. That's who the Cougars are missing. Can I do a little show and tell? Do you think we're at the level of that I could experiment on? You are? Well, I want to give folks an introduction to Bordy. Bad JP. I have been bad about sharing Bordy with others besides you. For those that don't know Bordy is my, I've named her that for almost 20 years of broadcasting. Over 20 years, yeah, doing broadcast. Geez, I'm old, Matthew. But I have seasoned veteran in the prime. But I wanted to see if I could share what I have going, and here is the Houston offense. So tell me, can you see that?
Oh, I got it.
How's she looking? Yeah, that's good. Okay, I guess it puts us to the side here. Little secret, folks. We don't always know what we're doing when we're producing this, but the boss is at play, so the boss is away, so the kids will play here. I have ultimate freedom here. So you can see all this, right? Scrolling by Toon and Henry. So you can see that, right? Sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, I can see everything.
Yeah, so
I'm reading your notes. Holgerson doesn't like the offensive line.
Yeah, and that's been public. They said that on the TV broadcast too, that the offensive line has struggled and that they made some adjustments. Flipping right here, they had, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but at the right guard spot, they put Tyler Johnson, the UT transfer, is starting at right guard because Tank Jenkins had been starting. I don't know if that's for some kind of ailment. We might learn that later in the week, but it's still a really good offensive line. And you look at Henry's numbers, he only had 56 yards rushing last week. Local kid, went out to the South Plains. Now he is, of course, trying to fill the shoes of McCaskill that suffered an injury in spring ball. So I think the screen's capturing where I line up the wide receivers on my board. But you got Dell, best wide receiver in the American Athletic Conference. And I can barely remember the quarterbacks in Conference USA, so don't try to get me started. Dell will also be, outside of Addison, maybe the best wide receiver that the Owls face this year. Ooh. And the best wide receiver, right? I mean, it's not too crazy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Grant Dubose at Charlotte.
Dubose is amazing. There? You're right.
He's top 3 for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a short list.
he's definitely up there, but he's got a salty resume, led the conference last year, catches and touchdowns, but don't overlook Matthew Golden from Klein Kane just up the road. He's a 4-star prospect. He was one of their best recruits in Cougars history. Manjack got a lot of run. Manjack and Brown were the ones, they got in that little tussle on the sideline. But they don't use their tight ends quite as much on the season, and people get to see the phonetic spelling. Like, yes, I know, while I'm a doofus in many other areas in life, I know how to spell Trahan, but Traha was the pronunciation of Trahan in last week. So I do different phonetic things. But anyway, a quick peek around Bordy on the U of H offensive side. What I don't know, this kind of gets scary again, a peek inside JP's mind. I don't know who they're going to put besides Campbell. They think a lot of Campbell, kind of inception, the USC transfer. Like, who transfers away from USC? Well, Campbell did, and he is a great talent. He could be the stud of the future mixed in the backfield there. So that is the tour on the Cougars offense, at least for now. I think, to break my arm and pat myself on the back, but I think we did well. Kind of a look inside Bordy. That's the Cougars offense in a nutshell.
Yeah, I like it. I think there's some new pieces, but I feel like, especially with, like, we've seen Dana Holgerson before many times. We've seen Clayton Toon. We've seen Tank Dell. We've seen the key pieces. So at this point, the questions, and I think it had been mentioned a couple different places, the O-line, man, to see what this Rice line, D-line was able to do without DeBraylin Carroll, like, woo-wee, this could be a fun matchup.
Yes, and that depth has to be tested. Debo, as we call him, I don't know if I'm authorized to use that, but he's not listed on the depth chart this week. They have Quint Titt starting in his place, and we saw Jalen Hargrove in summer workouts or fall camp. I don't know my seasons. Whatever they're calling the camp that was before the season. We saw Jalen Hargrove, and he's a big old boy. As a fellow big old boy, I can say that. So what does Hargrove do? But the way Blake Banish is playing, and I know Coach Calhoun, the defensive line guru, they could play Banish at both of those tackle spots too. So losing Carroll, it stinks, but being able to slide Banish over, and he's been getting about half the reps anyway, hopefully it's not as big a loss. But I did want to give that shout out. Hargrove's on the depth chart now. With the way Banish is playing, maybe that loss won't sting as much as it could in past years.
Hey, and I'm just a shameless plug here. If I were you and you're not subscribed yet on Patreon to the Roost, I would go do that, because there's a high likelihood that there's a practice update that comes out later this week that might talk about who might be available this week that wasn't last week.
Subscribe.
So I'm not breaking any news, but I'm saying you might know something.
It's my subliminal. Subscribe. No, you do an amazing job. No one covers Rice. And sorry to make you blush, but if you've got to subscribe to Matthew's pod to know what's going on, and send.
It's good stuff. And we're not done, JP. I can't let you off the hook yet.
What? We're not done?
You got at least 6 more minutes of me. And in the 6 minutes, I want to talk about the Houston defense, because I think this is the part of the game that I have the most questions about. I think on Rice, I feel like I know what the offense is going to be, and I know what the defense is going to be. The question for Rice has been, can you please not turn the ball over and hand out free points on offense? Like, that's really the only question I have, and the rest is just execution. For Houston, I got a good feel. I feel like on their offense, their defense, I have questions about, because they gave up, like 30 some odd points in all of their games so far. And I know they went to overtime against UTSA, still gave up 35 points, even in overtime aside. Texas Tech, they went to overtime. They gave up 33 points, again, overtime. But they didn't go to overtime last week. They played now 3-0 Kansas and gave up 48 points. So we've talked about how impressed we've been by the Rice offense. How intimidated should we be? I mean, we can be. The team will say they're not. But how intimidated we watching this game from the stands be about the Houston defense?
We can still do it. We can still be intimidated, not to come across as a Cougars homer, because I am not. They team across town. They played the best team in Conference USA. Until someone beats UTSA, they are the big dog on the block. They played a Joe McGuire team at Texas Tech that is a lot better than people think. And they played, it seems like just give them the trophy now, the most improved team in college football. They gave up those points. You are what the record says you are. You are what the scoreboard says. You are what the stat sheet says. Quick pro shout out to Bill Parcells. You are what you are. But can we do a tour around defensive boardy?
Yeah.
Looking at, okay, you should see the defense here. Again, not a finished product. Do not judge the content of this. But they've still got some hosses. I want to zoom in. Can you see it zoomed in on number 0 there?
Mm-hmm.
Derek Parrish eats glass for breakfast and likes it. He is
that? I don't see that on your notes.
Okay. That's on the fly, man. You get that for free. That's on the fly. And I love these previews. It's the new setup, I think, and just I don't know. I just love these and looking at teams like this, because what Coach Bloomgren has said, he said in 2 different settings. You heard what he said in the presser yesterday, gushing about Doug Belk. Came from Vandy. He's their associate head coach. So Coach Holgerson obviously thinks a lot of them, having him on the staff, but giving him the associate head coach title. But before I go too off in those weeds, came from Vandy as their corners coach, but now he is as aggressive as they come. And he says about Derek Parrish that he is just a relentless competitor. Derek Parrish on that end, he had 6.5 tackles for loss in that Texas Tech game 2 weeks ago. So that matchup, wherever, if he's lining up over Servin on Rice's left offensive side or Onyeonwa on Rice's defensive side, that's huge, but not to be overlooked. I haven't added all the goodies, but Caesar is a dude, another local product. There's obviously a lot of local products on this Cougars defense. Nelson Caesar is really good, and DeAnthony Jones can't be overlooked either. He actually started opposite Parrish on the other side, but as we all know, the starting stat doesn't necessarily mean a lot. In the middle there,
and then
yeah, go ahead.
Can we camp out real quick, because I want to sit here, because the defensive line for Houston, this is going to be their bread and butter. They got, 3 guys that they can rotate in and are going to be dangerous. And this, I believe, this is what sunk the Rice, not just the offense. This is what sunk Rice against USC. We watched their speed off the edge and their power off the edge. And granted, that was Ethan Onyeonwa's first career start as a college football player. But there was so much pressure off the edge that led to so many problems, so many forced throws. You can directly attribute at least one of the 4 interceptions in that game, the one thrown by TJ McMahon, to the fact that he was flustered and had to bail on the play and got sped up. This is we've seen the Rice offense struggle in the 3-game sample size, when there has been pressure, and the O-line held up really well against McNeese, and I felt they held up really well against Louisiana. When they've been able to kind of set the tone, they've been okay. Against USC, when they got in trouble, the entire offense cratered. And, we talk a lot about, 3 pick sixes, that's crazy. That's not going to happen, yada, yada. And that drops aren't going to happen. I don't think, even if UH has a really good performance up front, that we're going to see that again, because that was crazy.
No.
But I do think it's worth noting, how does this game get away from Rice? How does it go the wrong direction if they have trouble with this talent? Because I think, again, you talk about a very talented team. This is one of their better units. That's the part that gives Rice trouble.
Dang it, you're right. This is the theme of the day. Yeah, because if you're throwing from your lap, the other counterpoint to that is, Brother Bartlett, that in the USC game, Wiley threw one of the pick sixes. Yes, TJ did throw 2 of them. TJ and Coach Bloomgren both said in different settings they've made those adjustments. Now, he did throw another one against the Raging Cajuns. Good defensive line too, but that was the strength of their defense too. So that is also a point in that Bartlett column again. Yeah, this game's over if Rice can't get something against that great defensive line. It's their strength, but the Rice offense, the offensive line is a lot more improved. They do have on the Rice. Do you want to take a peek inside the Rice boardy for a second? Are we allowed?
Yeah, and I'll say there's a decent chance while you're pulling that up that Rice could be starting their fourth different offensive line combination in 4 games.
Yeah. So protect your eyes from this beauty, folks. This is my chart that I look at. And the green numbers essentially mean career highs and stuff. But let's go flip through the line. I've already made the changes how Baker's been starting for Klarkowski. But you got Servant on that left side, and I don't know if it shows my cursor, but here is the change at right guard there. Hughes is backing up at guard because Hughes is so vital because he is that swing tackle and backup guard. But Zhang Long also started that game against the Raging Cajuns. And how are we in the backfield? You got West. I think he'll run the ball a little bit more. No inside info. And there you see some of the tidbits that I highlight about the series matchup. And Jack Bradley's done anyway. We can go off and talk. But yeah, that's there switches my point in all of that in showing you the beautiful boardy. She's a beautiful gal. Is that the Owls have a counterpoint too, that they have more depth on the offensive line. But yeah, I'm stealing it, and I'm not even going to ask for permission. That's my key to the game. How does Rice handle whether it's Jones, whether it's Parrish, and Onyanwa is still a young guy. How do they handle that pressure there coming from that side? Because Parrish is a different dude. We've gone over time. That's good.
We have, but I'm going to give you one more guy. You can pick one more guy from somebody not on the front 4. I know you were about to go back and look at the linebackers in the secondary. Is there anybody else that the Cougars have that might be interesting, that someone is the Rice offense and their game planning is going to have to be prepared for? I'm giving you one toss-up. Pick one other guy that we need to know.
Definitely Mutant. It's spelled Mutin, but Donovan Mutant. Klein Collins guy. That would be my guy. The secondary is still really good. They have really aggressive safeties. You see my little note, Hippolyte's great, Colorado transfer, but I mean, big surprise. Leader on the defense is the middle linebacker, but and yes, I know how to spell tackles there. But so I'd say Mutant if I had to pick, because he's been there, he's done it before. But Hippolyte is a close second. See what I did there? I snuck 2 guys on you, and you had no idea. I snuck 2 guys.
Mutant does leave the team in tackles, so
so he's decent.
Like free square. So I'll give you that one. All right. We're over time. We're having too much fun. It's funny, we want to go longer and talk more when the Owls are winning. So I won't promise not an hour-long show if they beat Houston and go to 3-1, but we'll see. I kid. That's all we got, though. We will close out this week. We will get you a break. If you're catching this later, come join us next time. Hop on in the YouTube and come sit with us as we kind of go through our next adventure. Like I mentioned, we'll have practice notes up on the site at theroost.com. JP will be in the booth. Do we got the same setup real quick? I know it'll be different since we're across town. We can still watch you.
Oh, yeah. Any angry uncles or grandmas on Facebook can watch us in, and we go to Skateboard Man on YouTube too. So we appeal to all kinds. Brother Bartlett, in my final comment, the fun is in the winning, as you said there. And I talked with Coach Bloomgren. Fun's in the winning. They can move on to Houston. We can dwell on that win against the Raiders. So yeah, the fun is in the winning. Let's have more fun.
I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about Skateboard Man. This fictionary
have
person.
You never, Skateboard Man. I've never mentioned Skateboard Man in this setting, but the young hip hipsters. So maybe I can think of a different skateboard.
We'll get you. Well, we're all tuning in. That's what's important. Everybody's be ready. We will be back. Rain or shine, win or loss, we will be back next week to break down. I mean, we'll be a third of the way through the Rice football season at that part, which is crazy. Slow down, please, but speed up because we're ready for game day. So that's all we got. We're having too much fun. As always, Blue and Gray Rice football preview show. Hey, thanks, Billy. Appreciate it. we'll get you a shout out. You leave us a comment. Maybe we'll answer a question. We're always up for that.
Billy's the man. Weather genius there, Billy. He's your weather go-to.
Yeah.
Great follow on Twitter for Houston area weather, but always a fan of the broadcast and us. So yeah, anytime. Maybe I should say that at the start, but any comments are welcome too.
Yeah, we needed that. We got that weather break just barely. UH had a delay last week, I think. We didn't, but we're going longer. That's it. Rice Football Blue and Gray Preview Show. We're signing out. We will see you next week talking about one more game on deck. Until then, adios, guys. Rice fight.
Never dies.